So the idea is, I like to think of mobility as a hygiene practice because we're trying to optimize our health and prevent disease. If we think about disease in our joints, is arthritis or inflammation or just simply poor movement, right? Like you said, we want to open up the joints. So we look at the word mobility and break that down. The ability to move in one's environment freely and easily without pain or restriction. So we use a hygiene practice for our mouth, not only because we want to maintain good health and have good breath, but also it's just a habit, right? It's just something that we do that's a habit, that is just something that's ingrained in us. You know, same thing like we take a shower, right? At least some of us. I showered today, so not every day, but sometimes I do once in a while. So ideally, if we're going to take care of our mouth and we're going to shower, we want to do something for the inside of the body as well, for the joints and the tissues. Because what are our teeth made out of? Bone, right? What are our gums made out of? What's the cheeks made out of? Tissue, right? It's the same stuff as the muscles and the joints. It's all the same kind of tissue. And so we get brought up with this idea that we want to maintain optimal health and cleanliness of our mouth, and you know, these aesthetic pieces of our body are, you know, a facial care routine or a shower to make sure we smell nice and we're not getting dirty, right? But we don't get taught to have a mobility hygiene routine, something to make sure that we're clean on the inside. And so if we think about the different circulatory systems in the body, we have the cardiovascular system. You know, we've got the blood and the heart and the lungs, and that fluid gets pumped from the heart, right? The heart is the mechanical pump that moves that fluid through the body. Our lymphatic system doesn't have a pump, and so the only way that we can get the fluids to move through our body and clean out our joints and our tissues is through movement. Movement is actually, we're the pump. So by moving our body, we're creating different pressure changes and we're causing the tissues to squeeze and open, and that causes the fluids to move. And the lymphatic system you can think of as like the garbage system in our body. It's like you've got the garbage trucks that go around and pick up all the trash. If they didn't come and get the trash every week, it'd be a mess, right? So the lymphatic system works in that sense, where it's going around and cleaning up all the waste in the body and moving it out of the system through excretion, via sweat, via urine, via our poop, pee, sweat, any other ones off the top? Crying is another one, actually. But the lymphatic system needs movement. And so we have to develop a hygiene routine to improve not only our movement quality, so we can move freely and easily without pain in the environment, but also for cleanliness and health, for our circulatory system. So it's just something that we don't get taught as a kid, you know, in the way that we get brought up today, that movement is actually vital to health. And as we get into the fitness space, it starts to become more relevant because, like Tristan said, we do some kind of mobility work to warm up. Because for most fitness people, myself included when I was younger, it was just performance, right? Like if I can run faster, if I can lift more, if I can train harder, if I can get a faster time or a better, you know, outcome by doing some kind of preparatory activity, then yeah, absolutely, let's work that into the system. You know, so it doesn't just have to be from the health perspective. If it's optimizing performance, then that's also a benefit. So for fitness people, that's usually more motivation than brushing your teeth. You know, hey, it'll make you move better and for longer. And so that's kind of the idea here behind what I want to teach you guys, is some kind of hygiene practice that you can implement that's going to optimize your ability to move freely and easily without pain or restriction. And when it comes to being a trainer, I've been a trainer since 2010. I came up in the strength and conditioning space at Washington State University, training athletes in all sports. I was a semi-professional football player and an amateur bodybuilder, and so I beat my body up really tough when I was really young. So I hit a lot of those pain threshold walls sooner, and mobility became more important because I needed to do mobility work just to be pain-free so I could keep training, because I love to train. And it was relevant for continuing to, function in my sport. And so I have a very, passionate background in strength and conditioning. I love, if you see me in here, I like to train hard. I don't play around. But also, I get a lot of people coming up to me and saying, you always do different stuff. What are you doing? You're always like mobilizing and doing these weird things. And that's because I want to optimize my ability to perform, but I also want to perform and be jacked when I'm 70. I want to be able to do this stuff for as long as possible and do it pain-free. And so I went to a strength and conditioning summit from this organization called Perform Better. They're awesome. They make equipment. They host seminars and bring coaches and people together. It's an awesome environment. And one of the physical therapists they were putting on a workshop was Gary Gray, who's a really well-known physical therapist, and he has an institute called Gray Institute. And he has a bunch of courses, and he teaches a lot of really good stuff. And one of the things he teaches is 3D maps. And this was the first time I had been exposed to 3D maps. And actually, Gary Gray uses it as an assessment tool, which is why it's also great for practitioners and trainers. Because not only is it the corrective exercise that you can implement to help someone improve their movement quality and decrease pain and optimize their performance, but as a coach, as a trainer, you can use it as a litmus test. You can see them go through these movements and have a good, quick idea. It's a really simple test to do. It takes no time, no equipment, and you can just get an idea of where someone is good and where they're not, what their limitations are based on these tests. And so, to me as a practitioner, I was like, okay, cool. I can use this as another tool in my tool belt to test my clients, to assess and see how good they are at movement. And also, it just happens to be super simple and easy. The idea of 3D maps is there's 3 planes of motion. There's the sagittal plane, which is this front-back kind of movement. There's the frontal plane, which is like this strafing left and right kind of crab movement. And then there's the transverse plane, which is this rotational movement. And as humans, ideally we want to be able to move through all 3 planes, because we're going to be doing that in real life. And especially from the perspective of athletics, the more you have the ability to move freely and easily through all 3 planes of motion without pain or restriction, the more options you have as an athlete to move in different ways that are going to give you the edge of performance on the field. And the other thing I love about this system, going back to the hygiene aspect, is how simple it is. It's just 3 movements going through those 3 planes of motion. So our spine can move in all 3 planes of motion really easily. This is flexion, and this is extension. That's the sagittal plane. This is lateral flexion. This is the frontal plane. And this is rotation, the transverse plane. So our spine is designed to move in all 3 planes. And I love this quote. I think it was Ido Portal the first time I heard this. You're as young or as old as your spine. If you stop moving your spine, stop moving your body in general, the trash starts to build up. Your lymphatic system isn't circulating out waste. You're not stressing the tissues and keeping them adaptable to perform freely and easily in the environment. So the thing with being a coach is you can have the best program ever. And I love writing programs and getting all super detailed. But if you give it to someone and it sits on the shelf and they don't do it, what good is the program? It doesn't matter how fancy it is if they're not going to do it. And so any trainer or coach knows that what we do is actually just help people build habits. It's all about formulating a new lifestyle. We're adherence coaches more than anything. We're just trying to get people to adhere to whatever we give them. And what are the biggest factors in adherence, in habit formation? Time and effort. The longer it takes and the harder it is, the least likely they're going to do it. Why? Because we got lives, we got kids and stuff. We got stuff we got to do. If I'm going to give you this 2-hour-long program with these 40 things that you don't even know what their names are, your likelihood of doing that, especially over a long period of time, you got 4 hours of sleep because baby's teething, is really low. You're going to have a hard time with that. But if I give you 3 exercises to do that'll take you 5 minutes or less, that likelihood is going to go way up, especially if we can touch as many tissues and joints through their full ranges in those 3 movements as possible. So when I saw Gary Gray teach this, I thought it was brilliant. So I was like, this is actually something I can get my clients to do, because it's all about adherence. So mobility, my definition versus that definition on the wall, I love that one, but my definition of mobility, or mobility training, I should say, is loading your joints and your tissues through full range of motion in all 3 directions, progressively with load. The progressively with load is as you improve in strength and skill, the challenge needs to increase as well. Without getting too fancy, that's just meaning you can't keep lifting the pink dumbbells and expect your biceps to get bigger. You can't keep doing the same stretch at the same range of motion every single day and expect to gain more range of motion. You have to progress into new spaces. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable to continue to elicit an adaptation response. And so that's the beauty of this system. When I saw Gary Gray do this, he has these 3 exercises broken down. And these 3 exercises, we're going to go through all of them together, but this is the first one. We're going through flexion and extension. We're adding a step, which is locomotion. Now we're getting some balance work, coordination work, and I'm getting extension in the hip and flexion in the hip, to where now I'm not just working my spine, I'm getting my arms up overhead in flexion, arms up behind in extension. So essentially you're getting flexion and extension on all the joints in this one super smooth movement that you can do. Same thing, I can get all the tissues and the joints on the sides of my body, the insides and the outsides, by doing these. Some of you are probably like, oh shit, I've seen him doing this in the gym, I know what this is. Okay? Number 3 is rotation. We can get internal rotation in the hip and rotation in the T-spine, and then we can get some rotation in the shoulders, and then externally rotate the hip, rotate the spine the other way, and then switch the shoulders the other way. So we can essentially get pretty much all the joints and tissues to go through all of their anatomical positions in just these 3 movements. That was brilliant to me when I saw that. The only thing that I thought, there's 2 things that I added to his system after I saw this. The first one was, that might be a little progressed for somebody that just came out of a surgery, they are in a boot and they can't step, and a standing position is too much, their balance is challenged, they might have an injury, to where this might be just a little too much. So can we break it down? Can we chunk it down into something that's a little bit more digestible for somebody that isn't a pro athlete or somebody that has really good balance and coordination right away? Can we make this more universally accessible to all populations? And the second thing I thought of was, okay, these 3 movements take us through all the major ranges of motion in a linear fashion, but how often do we move through life in this really robotic 2D kind of way? It's usually a combination of flexion and rotation, extension and rotation, or something of that nature, where we're integrating the planes together to make it more 3D. So we're combining movements together, integrating them together to turn it into something that has more rotation, more spirals, more applicable to how we're actually going to move in real life. So the 3D map system is those 3 movements I demonstrated, and that's the end goal, the 3 movements going around. And then I added a 4th movement, which is just essentially a circle. Circumduction is just taking all of those planes and putting them together. If we look at the spine, here's flexion, here's rotation, here's lateral flexion, extension, rotation, lateral flexion. So now I just hit all 3 of those by turning it into a circle. You know, and the more you do it, the smoother it gets, the less robotic it gets, and it just turns into a nice circle. So if we can go through all 3 of the movements through full range of motion in a linear way, and then at the end go through a circle where we do all of them at once, we've covered our bases 100%. And so that's where I like the idea of thinking about this as a hygiene routine. This is just something that you can do quickly and easily and cover all your bases. Get all your teeth clean, get all your joints clean, and that's going to prevent cavities, bad breath, arthritis, inflammation, and it's going to keep you healthy. So we're covering our bases with that. So now, that's just my little spiel on 3D maps. Now, I just want to take you guys through all of the different planes. The first one, or the different phases. I broke this down into 7 different phases, and the name and email list that I have is a little ebook that I put together that has videos for every single one of these. So if you don't remember this stuff, that's totally fine. It's going to have the video with the text description, exactly how to do all of these when you leave. For trainers, this is great to use with your clients. This is something you can give them to do before the session or after the session to get a little bit of that extra warm-up or cool-down work, and you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to program it, and you know it's going to be good for them. And it's homework that they can take away and start implementing as a hygiene routine in their own life. And for everyone else, we can just start implementing this ourselves. I love to do it as a warm-up or a cool-down. You'll see me do this at the beginning of warm-up like every single day. And now, I want to show you how we can apply it in different positions throughout the kind of movement spectrum. So the first one, thinking about, we sit down a lot. So everybody can just kind of get into a seated position. And this is phase 1. It's really as easy as this. The first movement is through our sagittal plane, flexion extension, which is just rounding forward. So we're just going to kind of round our back and reach our arms forward. And then we're going to slide our arms back, lift our chest up into extension. So we sit down all the time, right? And like oftentimes when we're sitting in a chair and we're like sitting forward like this all the time, we lean back naturally, right? We're like lean over the back of the chair like that and get a stretch. That's our body telling us, yo, load these tissues through full range of motion to get the stretch and pump the fluids through the body. So it's already something we kind of want to do anyway. We're just bringing a little more intention and strategy into how we do it. If you're sitting in a chair, you've got a little more range of motion, so you can bring the arms up behind you. Now we're getting the shoulders in there a little bit as well. When we come up over the top, we can bring the arms up overhead. So now we're getting some lat stuff in there. We're just incorporating more joints as we go. If you're sitting in the chair, you can get even more range of motion. But this is the first one. Thinking about driving, I literally had a client a couple days ago, like, now I'm doing these in the car. Like, you've got me doing these all the freaking time, you know? You're just thinking about, how can I, you know, and I've got a toothbrush in my car right now. Because if I don't brush my teeth at home, you know what? On the car, on the way to the gym, quick time to do it. Same exact idea. You can do your hygiene anywhere. It just has to adapt to the environment you're in. So this is our first position, flexion extension through the sagittal plane. The second one, we're going to take our right arm out to the side, left arm reaches up over the top. Now we're getting a bend through the lats, get a nice stretch on the side body here, same thing on the other side. And if anybody's done any yoga classes or any kind of movement classes, maybe like a Pilates or something, you're probably like, oh, I've done these before already, and now it's starting to make more sense. And so all we're really trying to do from the concept level is load all the tissues and joints through full range of motion in all 3 directions. Okay, so this is the seated variation. Number 2, lateral flexion through the frontal plane. And number 3, we're just going to take our left hand and we can kind of grab on or use our leg for leverage or grab our knee and twist ourselves with our right hand going back behind us and look over our shoulder. And then we're just going to untwist. Right hand goes to the left knee and twists us over to the left, looking over our left shoulder. So this is rotation of the T-spine. This is probably the one that we lose the most of and where people get injured the most is by rotating into a position they haven't been in a long time and the tissue is weak and stiff and they pull something. And so just by going through some basic movements throughout the day when you're sitting down in your chair, you're encouraging your body to maintain function and mobility in these tissues that you're going to use, especially if you're training at any level of degree. Okay, so that's the third one. That's rotation through the transverse plane. Then our fourth movement is just a circle. We're just going to kind of draw a big circle with our head all the way around and get a little bit of all 3 of those in there. We can kind of imagine, I like to imagine drawing like a tornado where like your pelvis is the base of the tornado and then you're trying to get the top of the tornado as your head is big around as you can, make as big of a cone funnel as you can. Once you go one way a couple times, then we're going to go the other way, reverse it the other direction. And the idea of this, again, as you're doing these, remember, the goal is how simple and how fast can I implement this into my life, because that's going to increase my likelihood of actually doing this. And the name of the game is consistency, it's frequency. The more you do this, the more the tissues have the opportunity to adapt and get better.
Question about breathing?
Yeah.
These exercises?
Yeah. However you want. Yeah. The one thing I like to tell clients is do 100 reps and then you tell me. Because your body's going to figure it out. It's going to naturally know how to do that as you start to let yourself tune into the rhythm of what feels good. Typically, if we're looking at a breathing pattern, when we flex, we exhale because we're crunching and compressing the accordion, right? So the air's coming out as we compact that space. As we open that space, we've got more room to take a big breath. So depending on the movement, it'll change a little bit based on where you're at, but that's a good reference point that'll work for most things. But ultimately, just kind of play around with it. It's not too big of a deal how you breathe. It'd be like, should I brush my teeth this way or should I brush them this way? It's like, well, shoot, brush them. You know? Like, however you brush them, it's going to be cleaner than if you didn't brush them. You know? So that, I think, is more important than necessarily exactly how to be precise with the breath. Because then we're up in the head and we're thinking about too much, and it's like, fucking just do it. Just move it however it feels good. I got 2 minutes. What do I just move it? You know? So, yeah. After you do 100, you'll be like, you know what? I feel actually if I inhale over here, I get a little more of a stretch. Okay, hell yeah. Take a breath right there and release that a little bit, you know? Play around with it, noodle around is what I tell my clients. Tension hunting. You look for lines of tension when you find them. Hang out there for a second. Take a big breath. Exhale a little deeper. Oh, let go a little bit. Okay, cool. Keep going on with your circle. Or keep going on with the movement. But after you do a few reps, you'll kind of know where you want to breathe, what feels the best as far as what movement you're getting access to from the breath. So that's the first one. The second one, this one's going to look, again, like I said, you might recognize this from yoga. We're going to go to what's called quadruped. Quadruped just means quad, four, ped, pedal, 4 limbs, okay, on the ground. Now, we're going to go through that first motion of extension and flexion, which in yoga, you might recognize is called cat-cow. So, flexion is going to be tucking the chin to the tailbone and rounding and spreading the spine. That's flexion. We're going to get a big stretch through some of our back stuff here. And then extension of the spine is trying to touch the top of your head to the back of your tailbone. Pull your shoulder blades down, lift your chest up, and you can kind of wiggle around. You know, same thing with the breath is finding those tension lines. You're like, oh, my right lat today. Geez, okay. So you kind of hang out there a little bit longer. Take a breath or two, and then move into the next rep. It doesn't have to be, you know, any kind of exact position. We're thinking more conceptually where we're just moving the body. We're getting fluids pumping around, and we're loading those tissues through full range of motion in all 3 directions, however we want. So this is flexion extension through the sagittal plane. This is our first one. Our second one is going to be child's pose with the lateral reach. So our big toes go together, our knees kind of spread apart a little bit. We're going to kind of push our hip bones back to our heels. And then we're just going to walk our hands over to the right side. Right hand pushes down strong as an anchor. Left hand reaches across the body as our armpit and our forehead sinks to the ground. We're getting a nice stretch through the lat, just like we did when we were sitting down, but now there's some other stuff happening. We're getting the hips involved, the pec gets a nice stretch here, we're getting more activation on our side body with that right arm that's pushing. We're going to walk over to the left side, same thing. Left hand walks outside that left knee, left elbow squeezes into that left thigh, and we reach that right arm across the body as we sink forehead and armpit to the floor. Now we're getting the stretch on the other side. We'll go one more each side with this one. Walk it over to the right. This is usually a crowd favorite. This one hits a lot of spots. This is a nice one. Sink it down on the right. Stay active on that right side. Squeeze the right lat, squeeze the right obliques. Get some activation there. If anybody knows David Wett or Landmine University, we're getting a little coiling action in the spine here. Squeezing the left spinal engine and the right spinal engine to activate some muscles while we stretch the other side. So we're just adding on from seated. This is a little bit more progressive. The next one is going to be child's pose with a threaded needle. So our left arm is going to reach underneath our right arm and hover off the ground as we look up towards the ceiling. This is our rotational movement through the transverse form. Now we're getting the shoulder involved with some stability, holding our body weight up. That left arm is going to reach up to the ceiling, push the right arm long into the floor, and open up the chest by squeezing those back muscles together. Now we're getting the back, some postural muscles involved. We're going to go one more underneath, hover as we look up to the ceiling, and then rotate up, push the floor away. Big squeeze in those back muscles, open the chest. We're going to switch sides. Left hand goes down. Right hand reaches underneath, hovers off the ground as we look up to the ceiling. Rotate the head and neck along with the rib cage to get a little extra credit. Then we're going to rotate to the right. Right arm goes up to the sky. Squeeze. Open the chest. We're going to come underneath. Looking up to the ceiling as we twist to the left. And then we're going to go last one to the right. Up to the ceiling. Squeeze those back muscles together. It's almost like a band pull action happening with the back. And then come back down. Okay, so that's all three of the linear movements. Now, we're going to do some body circles here for quadruped. So the hands can walk out just a little bit more, give you a little more range of motion. And you're going to, instead of drawing that circle with your head, you're going to draw that circle with your hip bones around your knees. So your knees are kind of like the center point, and then your hip bones are drawing the top of the tornado, that big funnel action. So we're getting some nice opening here. I really like feeling this one in my hip sockets.
A little
I
crunchy.
get some good release. Yeah, maybe a little crunchy in the front of the hip socket here. You can kind of come down in front, get a little stretch on the hip flexors. As you push back, really push out to the side, and you'll get that femur bone to stretch out some of that glute tissue. We can get a little bit of some shoulder stuff happening here too, just by emphasizing the squeeze of the shoulder blades. Just playing around, we're exploring again, right? It's the same idea of like brushing our teeth or flossing, is we're just getting into the nooks and the crannies, the little areas where maybe we got a little piece of food stuff. We're just trying to move things around. Again, we can switch directions, let's go a couple the other way. You can kind of emphasize that stretch, that sensation where you want by pushing the body into those different corners. You can get a little more low backy with it by kind of squeezing that, like that child's pose lateral reach. You can kind of get that lat to compress and activate and get a little bit of some release in the QL. So that's all fours. That's quadruped. Okay, that's phase two. We're going seated is the easiest. It's phase one because we're sitting down. It's the least amount of joints and it requires the least amount of stability or strength. Level two is from all fours. We've got a little bit more stability required, holding our weight up on our shoulders, and we're getting more joints involved. The hips are starting to get involved as we're starting to move around and push the hips back to the heels. Level three now is going to go to half kneeling. Half kneeling is, I'm going to grab the yoga block for this just on my knee. Half kneeling is, no, you guys are good on that. You will. You'll need one. Unless your knee is made of titanium, that shit hurts, no? Okay, this is half kneeling. Half kneeling is we're in a kneeling position with half of our legs kneeling, and the other half is up here. Okay, this is a nice kickstand. This is a really stable position. This is a great base for a lot of reasons. Number one, we're in hip extension on one leg. Okay, as much as we can, we want to train this position because we spend so much time in this position all the time, right? This is our seated hip flexion position. So by putting one leg in hip extension, we can kind of bias into those corners there and get some stretch on these hip flexor tissues that are often in this short seated position all day long. So just by hanging out in this position, we already start to kind of counteract 2025 human living sitting down all the time. And now our hands are on the ground. So we're now having to stabilize ourselves with more of our core muscles, our pelvic floor. We've got a good wide base. The wider the base, the more stability. The narrower the base, now the more balance challenge. We've got a little bit more to deal with here. So you can find a base that's comfortable, whatever it is. Get But note that now I've got a little bit more challenge. I've progressed in the amount of stability required from my core. Now we're going to go through the same 3 movements. The first one, flexion and extension. I like to start this off by hugging myself here, reaching for the shoulder blades, because it takes the arms out of it. If the arms are just hanging, they're kind of in the way at first, so we have a little more strategy here. And also, let's get some extra stretch sensation on some of the back stuff. So this is good to start, just to teach you the movement. And we're going to start from the top down. We tuck the chin into the chest, round through the upper back, pull the core in, squeeze tight from the pelvic floor. We're pushing down into our front foot as we round down and kind of hinge at the hip a little bit. Once we reach our bottom position, we're really just hanging. You might even get a little bit of a stretch in the hamstring and groin of that front leg. We can pull our elbows out in front of us, reaching towards the toes of the front foot to get a little more traction through that upper back and get some release in the shoulders and the scaps here, like a little lat stretch. Just get some extra credit stuff going on up top. Okay, and then we're going to roll up from the bottom, push into that front foot, hamstring, pelvic floor, deep core muscles engaged, and we roll up until we get back to our neutral position. And then we're going to squeeze our back glute and pull the belly button up, lift the sternum up, lift the chin and the elbows up, and now we're in extension. And if we go neo-matrix limbo style and use our back foot as a kickstand and lean back even more, holy cow, now that's a lot of work. We're really firing our quad, we're getting a big stretch, almost like a camel pose if anybody's a yogi in here, where you can get some really good load through extension. We're going to come back down, roll it down top bottom. This is our flexion position, stretching the back side of the body, getting the hamstring going here, and then we're going to roll up. Lift up first, squeeze core in, and then start to lean back in the hip to get that quad at the back leg. Okay, so that's flexion extension. Now, okay, that's definitely more work than quadruped, right? We're really working. Now let's get the shoulders involved. We can get the shoulder joints to go through a full range of motion. In this position is internal rotation and extension. Palms are out, arms are up and back. And then we're going to reverse that as we roll up. Arms are going to go into palms back, arms up, flexion, and external rotation. So now we're getting some hips, a lot of spine and core, and we're getting some shoulders too. Okay, and we're going to switch legs just to even it out. Get a little stretch on the other side, and move into our frontal plane. This is our side bend stuff. Okay, now we've got to balance ourselves a little bit more, and we can reach deeper into that range of motion. Really start to load this side stuff. So instead of just relaxing on the ground, try to reach out away from the body as you reach up and across. And now you have to hold that. It's very much like a side bend on the back extension, or you see people standing and they do a dumbbell side bend. We're getting that same kind of range of motion and load on the tissues. But we're also doing some other stuff here too. We're getting hip extension, we're stretching the quad out. Okay, so just getting a lot of things done with these movements. And this is something half kneeling. You can do this anytime, right? If you got kids, you're down on the ground a lot. So you're just down on the ground playing with toys, and you're just ripping a couple of each of these to balance out all that work you do here in the gym. Okay, so that's our lateral flexion to the frontal plane. And then if you want, you can switch legs again, just balance things out a little bit. The rotation, simple. We just rotate all the way back. Palm up on the back side, palm down on the front side. We're getting that external, internal rotation, rinsing out the joint. And then we just rotate the other way. Come to the left, the other palm goes up, the other palm goes down, and we rotate. And now, we're twisting the hips away from the rib cage. So as we twist, everybody's twisting to the left, twist your hips to the right. You're twisting to the right, twist your hips to the left. And you'll notice it limits a little bit of how far you can go back, but you can really feel that activation of those spinal muscles as we rotate like we're trying to twist the hips in the opposite direction. Okay, so that's our half kneel. Now we're going to go to full kneeling. Full kneeling is on both knees, and we've got a couple options here. This is a nice one because, again, more birds with one stone. We can have the toes tucked under, and we can get a little bit of stretching going on the Achilles and on the plantar fascia, the bottoms of the feet. We can go from a tall kneeling position up here, if that's a little intense, or we can come down to a low kneeling position and sit our hips back to the heels. Now we're getting even more stretch on some of that stuff that's tight for a lot of people. And so if we can mobilize our spine and stretch out our feet, our toes, our ankles all at the same time, that's a win. Because remember, time and effort are the biggest things. We're just trying to get the most done for the least. So this is a really easy position to get into. Then we can get a little bit extra credit going here. And depending on the movement, you might want to do one from up and one from down. Let's see. The other option is you can turn the toes over. And now we're getting a stretch on the anterior tibialis, the front of the shin. That may feel really nice. So depending on the movement, you can do a little bit of both and get some extra credit stretching happening for that lower limb. So the first one here is going to be extension and flexion, the front and back stuff. We're going to start in our tall kneeling position. And we're just going to, just like what we did with half kneeling, we're going to start to kind of neo back bend here. And I'm pushing into the tops of my feet or my toes as I lean back. You're only going back to the point where you feel comfortable. You don't want to try to injure yourself or go for a PR here. We're just trying to get a good stretch on the front side. And then when we come to the bottom, I like to actually shift this one down to the low kneeling as I come forward until the forehead finds the floor.
Okay, it doesn't have to get to the floor, but we're reaching in that direction. And arms can be added here to go up and back. That internal rotation and extension position to rinse out some of the front shoulder stuff. And then as we come up to our tall kneeling and lean back into extension, we can go up and back with the arms to get a little extra credit. Arms can open out to the sides or come down. We can kind of play around here like some snow angel action and feel, oh, okay, that kind of changes the stretch and the leverage. That's harder. Okay, so we can play around with this a little bit. Come down again one more. Arms go up and back. Maybe arms go out in front this time. We're kind of in that child's pose position again. Now I can really feel a good stretch on my pecs if I reach my arms out in front of me. Okay, so depending on where you're sore or tight, you can kind of modify these and change the angles and change the breath to open things up. Our side bend is the same thing as the half kneeling, except now we're on the two knees, reaching out to the side as we come up and over. Same thing side to side. Now here's where I'm going to introduce another little extra credit for the shoulders here. We can actually reach the arms behind us to get that extra shoulder works while we're doing our side to side here. So when we bend to the left, our left arm's going to go down and our right arm's going to go up. And now we're getting some extra range of motion work in the shoulder joint. And this position, especially internal rotation extension down the back, is limited for most people. And so if you can work on your shoulder mobility and stretch out your pecs and your lats while you're brushing your teeth, while you're doing your spine stuff that you would be doing anyway, might as well. So it's nice little extra credit there. Rotation, exactly the same. We twist our hips the opposite direction as we reach behind. Okay, again, just like with the variations that we just did with the shoulders, we can kind of play around here too. We can go one arm down and one arm up. Then we're getting a little bit of extension and rotation. Remember, we can kind of mix things together a bit. Okay, reaching for the heel behind as you reach up a little bit. Or you can reach both hands down and kind of round a little bit as you reach down and see how that changes the sensation of the stretch in the back and the lats. Okay, so that's our tall kneeling. I forgot the number 4 for the half kneeling, so we're just going to do that really quick and then we'll go into number 4 for the tall kneeling. So for half kneeling, we did this for quadruped, body circles. Now we're going to do barrel rolls. So instead of moving the pelvis, we're going to move the rib cage. The pelvis stays where it is, and if anybody remember those
two-person jump ropes, big long jump ropes. Imagine your head is one person holding one jump rope and your pelvis is the other and your spine is the jump rope. And you're doing this big barrel roll motion where you're pushing your spine out to the side and then rounding it up, hollowing the front side through the top part of the jump rope, push your ribcage over to the other side, and then drop the ribcage down the bottom part of the jump rope. This is like a cat-cow meets two-person jump rope. We're getting that cylindrical kind of shape. And what I love about these is we can get the head and neck involved here. It kind of does like a counter circle. So if you're feeling like, ooh, a little crunchy and stiff in the head and neck, you can just focus on rolling your head around while your ribcage does the circle. Or you can focus more on the jump rope being down by the pelvis and almost more like a hula hoop action where you're really trying to rotate from the pelvis to get more flossing in the hip joints. So that's our barrel roll. That's our 3D integrated movement for the half kneeling. For the full kneeling, we're going to do controlled articular rotation. Maybe I'll do a workshop on cars one of these days in the future, but right now, we're just going to do a slow motion joint circle for the upper back. Okay, we're going to take the arms out, we're going to flex down in front, and we're going to rotate to the left. Not a ton of range here if we keep our hips steady and just focus on the spine. We're going to tip our left armpit down, right armpit up, and then lift up and back, and rotate across the ceiling to the right. Right armpit comes down, left armpit comes up, and then we start to round and roll forward in the middle until we get back to our center line. We're going to do one circle the other way. We rotate to the right, like we're opening a jar. Right armpit down, left armpit up, that's our side bend. Then we lift up into extension, rib cage lifts up in the front. We rotate across the ceiling. Left armpit comes down, right armpit comes up, side bend. And then we crunch and round and roll forward through to the middle line. Okay, that's our slow motion joint circle there. So that's the way to 3D the spine from full kneeling already in that position. So it's a really good base for that. So now we're 4 down. We got 3 left. The next one is standing. So we're just adding now these joints. We're standing up to a full range of motion here and giving ourselves the same exact movement, but from standing. Now, my hamstrings are fully involved. So when I round 4, I'm going to feel a big stretch on the hammy. And then when I roll up, same idea, bottom to top. Keep the belly button in tight, pelvic floor, tight hammies, and roll up as we hollow out that spine. And then we're going to squeeze the glutes, push the hips forward, lift the chest, and lean the rib cage back, look up and back. There's our extension. Okay, we'll do one more rep. We can add the arms here. We're going to roll the spine down. Arms go up and back. Extension. Internal rotation. Okay, get some good shoulder stuff here. This is like a skinned cat if you think about being up on the rings. Okay, this is that exact same position here. And then we're going to roll up. Arms sweep down in front. We come up and back. Palms face behind us as we externally rotate that shoulder joint. We can even get a little opening to the chest here. Bring the arms out to the sides. Arms go back up. Come back. Woo, now look over here. Sweat a little bit, boy. There you go. Good. Okay. Next one. Good. Side bend. We're going to reach down. Arm comes up across. Yeah, this one's familiar, but again, now we're just able to get more range, more load through the body because we're standing. We can reach deeper because there's no floor stopping us. You can really get that side bend and do one more each way. Now let's do that shoulder rotation. If we bend to the right, that right arm goes behind and below. And when we go to the left arm goes down and back. And we can kind of look up into extension. Notice how that gets a little more front stuff versus if we look down. Now we're going to do a little more back step. So depending on where you're sore and tight, around those corners. Okay, standing rotation. Twist the hips in the opposite direction of the rib cage. You can play around with the elevation of the arms, up to you. You do one more each way. And now the fun stuff. The next two variations where you really start to challenge the full body. Okay, so that's standing. Now we're going to do split stance. Split stance is basically like the top of the lunge position. Take these off just so I have a little better footing. So we've got one foot in front, one foot behind. I recommend a decently wide stance, at least hip width apart. Think like railroad tracks. If anything, you can even go a little bit wider just to give yourself a little more balance at first. Our front foot is going to be pointed straight. Both feet are going to be pointed forward. The back heel is going to be up here so we can work into some loaded extension on this back leg. So we're going to start by rounding forward. Same idea, we just roll the spine down, and notice now we're getting that hamstring similar to the half kneeling, but we're in a standing position, so there's more load and more range. We're reaching our chin for the floor, arms up and back, and then we roll it up. That front position is kind of like a pyramid pose for you yogis. And then we come up and back, and this is kind of like a crescent lunge. Okay, so now we're really challenging that front side system, and now we feel it in that hip flexor all the way down to the heel of that back foot. And we can play around here. We can bend that back knee a bit to deepen the stretch there. Oh, okay. And then we come back down. The more we straighten this front leg, the more length and tension we put on that hammy, the more juice we get flowing. Okay, same idea as we come up and back. The more we bend that back knee towards the floor and lean back, the more length and tension we get on the hip flexors and the quad stuff and some of the Achilles and plantar fascia. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one, switch sides, balance it out, is our lateral flexion. Now, more than anything, we're just adding a balance challenge by being in the split stance. The range of motion looks the same, but we've got a little bit more difficult base of support that just requires a little bit more work. Now, one thing you'll notice is when you stretch in the opposite direction of the leg back, you're going to get greater stretch because the leg that's in extension, the hip that's in extension, is going to put a stretch on the TFL and the quaddy stuff and hip flexors, and those all tie into the lat right at that hip. And so if we stretch the lat while the leg's in hip extension, we're going to get an even bigger stretch. So one way you'll notice is easier, and one way is harder. You get a bigger stretch when you reach away from that back leg. Okay, so that's a really nice stretch there. And again, with this one, we can add the arms reaching behind, bending at the elbows. We just get a little bit more shoulder action going in there. And then switch the legs again, we'll do rotation. Again, we've just got a little bit more balance challenge happening in our split stance. It requires a little bit more focus and a little bit more core stability. Okay, and again, thinking about half kneeling is just basically the bent version of our split stance. We're also getting all that nice load and length on the hip flexor stuff to counteract all that sitting. This is one of the reasons you see me. This is one of the ones I do the most when I do this myself for my warm-ups, because the split stance gets a lot of things done at once. Now, standing, I missed another one too. Standing and the next three are all from standing, split stance, and steppings. They're all body circles. It's the same, just like from our knees, it's the same one. So we'll just do one for time. From standing, it's just our body circle, going one each way. Okay, drawing a big circle with the head, going behind us. And this one's really nice from standing, especially when you're in extension, going up and back. You'll feel some crunchy, tight, pinchy stuff in the back, behind the rib cage there. Some of that is just all sorts of sticky stuff, and doing more of these is going to get that gunk out of those teeth. So really go slow and be smooth in that back stuff area. So that's our standing one. What I like to do for the split stance is we just add the elbows. Okay, so now I'm going to reach up. Imagine you're Superman and you're tearing your shirt open, showing the S on your chest as you come through extension. We're squeezing our shoulder blades together, retracting our shoulder blades to open up the chest muscles. And then when I come down into flexion, I'm protracting my shoulder blades and reaching my elbows in front of me. All we're doing is just accentuating the stretch on all those trunk muscles. Retract and open into extension across. And then spread the shoulder blades, point the elbows in front as we round. Okay, now the best one, the last one, phase 7, stepping. We're going to add all the pieces together, okay? So for this one, we're going to step, it's just like split stance, except we're going to step back into our forward position and step forward into the extension position. Okay, so we're going to start standing. One leg stays the whole time, the right leg moves. We're going to step back and round forward. This is our flexion position. Then we're going to step forward with the right foot, come up and back into extension. Okay, now notice a lot of balance challenge. There's all sorts of coordination and stuff that has to happen here. We're stepping back with the right as we round down. Stepping forward with the right as we lift up. Okay, and then both feet meet, come to neutral. Now we're going to do lateral flexion. We're going to do our side-to-side stuff. This one's probably the most complex. It feels the funkiest. You might get your feet mixed up a little bit, but that's okay. We'll just work through it together. Your left foot is going to be in front of your right foot. What we're doing is we're putting the right hip into extension. So if you were to do a side bend, push your hip out to the right, you can feel a little bit of a stretch maybe. Not a ton, but a little bit. Now cross your left foot over your right foot, and now side bend and push into your right hip. You'll feel a greater stretch through that hip stuff. Okay, so this is position number 1. We reach down to the left as we push our hips to the right. Now position 2, we're going to take that left foot. yeah, exactly. That's good. Left foot steps out to the left. This is like a lateral lunge. You guys might need to go sideways on your mat. And then we're just going to reach in the opposite direction. So now we're getting the groin stuff of that right leg on when we go to the left. Left foot steps across to the right, back to position 1. And we're getting the glute stuff. We're getting the outside stuff. So this is stretching the outside and the inside of the hip tissue while we're doing our spinal side bending. That's why I love this one so much, is because we can get the hips in positions that we don't normally stretch very much. Okay, this groin stuff, left foot steps out to the left, arms reach to the right. Left foot steps to the right, arms reach to the left. Okay, like I said, this one's the most confusing. But once you get it, sensationally, you'll feel it in your body. When you step across and push over, you're like, oh, there's a really nice stretch. And then when we step away, we get that really nice stretch on the groin stuff. Okay, so that is our frontal plane. And then the last one is rotation, the transverse plane. So our left foot is going to stay locked into the floor, and we're actually going to rotate our pelvis around that front leg. So when we turn our belly button to the left, towards our left thigh, this is internal rotation of the hip. And you should feel some nice stretching through the glute stuff here. Then when we open, we're going to step open and turn from that glute stuff to the left leg and open us to the right into external rotation of that hip as we reach the arms the other way. So we're getting rotation in the spine, but we're also getting turning to the left, belly button to the left, internal rotation in that left hip, getting a nice stretch through the glute. And then when we open to the right, belly button to the right, we get external rotation. Might even feel a little bit of knee stuff happening here, getting some rotation in the knee. This internal rotation position is really nice, closing that hip down, getting a big stretch on the glute. Okay, this is position 3 for our stepping, 3D maps. Now our fourth movement for the final version of stepping is we went from just the torso to the elbows. Now we're going to do the full straight arms. Now the levers are really long, and we get the most stretch and the most tension through the entire system here as we do our circle. So you can really feel how this gets all the little corners of the pieces that the first three don't hit. We can do one circle the other way, reverse it, big reach up, back, around, and a big stretch through in that forward fold. Roll spine up to neutral. And you now all are 3 maps masters. Okay, so the ebook that I'm sending out to you guys will have all 7 of those phases with all 4 movements. You'll have links for every single one of them and descriptions for all of them. And you can implement any of them in any fashion at any time. The idea is just brush your teeth every day, floss your joints every day, maintain your mobility hygiene. Thank you guys so much. Any questions? Anybody got any questions?
How many reps the least amount?
5 of all 4 of them.
Each set.
Yep. 5 front and back, 5 side to side, 5 rotation, and then 5 circles. That'll take you 5 minutes max.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Beautiful, John. Yeah. Thank you guys for your time and attention.